Now, the deep state, they are backed into a corner, and they're trying to control everything they possibly can through social media. Now, they understand that social media is very powerful. There are certain voices on social media that are pushing the truth. They have a huge amount of followers, and they're very nervous and afraid about this. And this is why they've been bringing certain channels down, because as you know, the midterms are coming up. There's going to be the release of the IG report and other things, and they don't want this information out there. They're also trying to set up a way to re-educate everyone in what's really going on, with their fake news. YouTube is doing something very interesting. They have just pushed out their climate change re-education camp. Now, once again, Trump came in and canceled the climate change thing with France and other nations, and the deep state, they don't like this. Remember, they were using climate change for a specific agenda. And YouTube, they are setting a dangerous precedent for other social media platforms, which may soon do the same thing that they're doing. Now, YouTube decided to post a banner beneath videos that question the consensus of global warming. More precisely, it even flags videos that do not question the warming. All the video has to do is question the magnitude of warning and its related impact. Now, the banner of these videos, this is a Wikipedia preview banner, and if you click on it, guess what? You're taken over to Wikipedia, and they explain global warming and why it's a real science. Well, there's 3 problems with this. First, YouTube has made itself now the authority on climate change, saying this is where you need to look for the real information. And remember, YouTube was supposed to be a platform where people just shared videos, and YouTube was not supposed to be the ministry of truth, as they like to call it, even though it's not really based on truth and hard facts. Second, YouTube's classification of videos from skeptics, they are labeled as conspiracy videos or hoax videos. Well, this is a mockery of traditional scientific methodology. Some of the videos, well, they go through testing hypothesis with empirical evidence, which validates or invalidates them in a fundamental way. And they're not conspiracy theories. They're showing you step by step how they came out with their answer to the problem. And of course, all they do is send you over to Wikipedia. They don't care about that. And I remember going back where during the Obama administration, during the hearings, they were saying that global warming, or they'd change it then to climate change, this is it. The science is settled. Well, science is never settled. Science keeps evolving. You should be able to take what they've given you and recreate it over and over and over. And if you can't do that, and if they won't give you the data to do this, there's a major problem. Third, the Wikipedia banner leads users to the Wikipedia page on global warming, which is nothing but a one-sided, heavily moderated propaganda page. But again, this is the beginning stages. What they're going to try to do next is anyone that is speaking, opposite of what the corporate media is speaking, they're going to start putting banners under those videos saying, nope, this is from the New York Times, or this is from CNN, this is from, MSNBC. So this is wrong. And you can see this is just the beginning stages here. We see that 300 news outlets, they're out there publishing editorials blasting Trump's dirty war on the press. Now, this came from the New York Times headline on February 17, 2017. Trump calls the news media the enemy of the American people. And when you read this, you say, oh my God, the news media is the enemy of the American people? But this is not what Trump said in his tweet. Actually, what the New York Times did was they left out a word. Trump actually said the fake news media failing at New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people. So the New York Times changed this to Trump calls the news media, but that's not what he said. He said the fake news media, and the New York Times went ahead and changed it to the news media. So already they're fake news. So we can see there's a very big difference in this. So with this one piece purportedly about how Trump called all the America's media the enemy, the Times did exactly what Trump was complaining about. They omitted a few words, spun the story into something completely different, and proved Trump absolutely right. And then what happened? Well, more than 300 newspapers across the U.S. ran anti-Trump editorials in an effort coordinated by the Boston Globe. So this is just unbelievable. Now, the Globe wrote the following. I'm not going to read everything. I'll just read a portion of it. Replacing a free media with a state-run media has always been a first order of business for any corrupt regime taking over a country. Today in the United States, we have a president who has created a mantra that members of the media who do not blatantly support the policies of the current U.S. administration are the enemy of the people. This is one of the many lies that have been thrown out by this president, much like an old-time charlatan threw out magic dust or water on a hopeful crowd, the Globe wrote. Trump took aim at the coordinated effort, and he wrote this on Twitter. The Boston Globe, which was sold to the failing New York Times for $1.3 billion, plus $800 million in losses and investments, or $2.1 billion, was then sold by the Times for $1. Now the Globe is in collusion with other papers on free press. Prove it. And then he wrote this. There is nothing that I would want more for our country than true freedom of the press. The fact is that the press is free to write and say anything it wants, but much of what it says is fake news, pushing a political agenda or just plain trying to hurt people. Honesty wins. So the fake news media, who has lost all right to complain, they're not speaking truth to power. They're defending their own agenda. But Trump just isn't going to play their game. And they're very angry about this. He wants them to print and create and investigate stories that are based in truth, not making it up and being one-sided. So Trump posted one more item on Twitter on Thursday saying, the fake news media is the opposition party. It is very bad for our great country, but we are winning. So we see right now that there's a huge battle going on, and the deep state, they're doing whatever they possibly can to counter what is going on, and that is the truth. And it's becoming more and more difficult to do this, and they're going to keep trying to the very end. Now we see the Wall Street Journal. They're doing some investigative reporting, and Kimberly Strassel is looking into this entire situation with Bruce Ohr, with Peter Strzok, and they're asking some questions here. So the Wall Street Journal is continually countering and dropping uncomfortable truth bombs and refusing to back off of its intense pressure to get the truth and hold those responsible and accountable out there. And once again, Kimberly Strassel, who by now has become the focus of social media attacks for her truth-seeking reporting, does it again, and she points out the following. Hours after former CIA Director Brennan threw a tantrum over having his security clearance removed, that while Justice has released some damning documents, particularly on Bruce Ohr, was doing, much of the truth is still classified. She asked, what was Bruce Ohr doing? The Federal Bureau of Investigation and Justice Department have continued to insist they did nothing wrong in their Trump-Russia investigation. This week should finally bring an end to that claim, given the clear evidence of malfeasance via the use of Department as Bruce Ohr. Mr. Ohr failed to disclose on financial forms that his wife, Nellie, worked alongside Mr. Steele in 2016, getting paid by Mr. Simpson for an anti-Trump research. The Justice Department has now turned over Orr's documents to Congress that show how deeply tied up he was with the Clinton crew, with dozens of emails, calls, meetings, and notes that describe his interactions and what he collected. Mr. Orr's conduct is itself deeply troubling. He was acting as a witness via FBI interviews in a case being overseen by a Justice Department in which he held a very senior position. He appears to have concealed this role from at least some superiors, since Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein testified that he'd been unaware of Mr. Orr's intermediary status. But it raises at least two further crucial questions. First, who authorized or knew about this improper procedure? Mr. Strzok seems to be in the thick of it, having admitted to Congress interactions with Mr. Orr at the end of 2016. And while Mr. Rosenstein disclaims knowledge, Mr. Orr's direct supervisor at the time was the previous Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates. Who else in former FBI Director Jim Comey's inner circle and at the Obama Justice Department nodded at the FBI's backdoor interaction with a sacked source and Clinton operative? Second, did the FBI continue to submit Steele or Simpson-sourced information to the FISA court, having informed the court in later applications that it had fired Mr. Steele? The FBI would have had no business continuing to use any Steele information laundered through an intermediary. So now the corporate media, parts of the corporate media, not all of it, some investigative reporters, they are asking these questions because it's not making sense. Let's move on and update on what's going on with this New Mexico compound. Now, we know that these individuals are connected. Higher ups have come down and said, listen, let these people go. This was an operation. And just like every other operation that we've seen with false flags, what do they do when they want to cover up what was going on in that area? They destroy it. New Mexico authorities have executed a court order to destroy the New Mexico compound. Now, why would they do this? I mean, think about this for a second. Why would they go ahead and destroy it right after Bacchus allowed 4 out of 5 alleged Muslim extremists free on a 20,000 signature bond, which means they didn't have to pay, which makes no sense. And we know one of these individuals was an illegal immigrant. And we know the word came down from higher up. Let's destroy it, hide all the evidence, let these people go. No one will know anything. That's exactly what it looks like right now. Let's get into some of the Q posts right now. We have quite a bit of them to go through here. Post 1905, August 16th. Anyone have problems with their Xbox Live account shortly after the drop yesterday? Brackets, bold, purge. How many coincidences before mathematically impossible? So this was a cleanup following Q's post about the deep state using Xbox Live for comms. And what's very strange is that after that Q400 plane crashed and things like that, or maybe it didn't crash, all of a sudden the Flight Simulator X Steam Edition went on sale. Now that is really strange to have this go on sale right after this incident. It's kind of crazy. Let's move on to post 1906, August 16th, and Adam put up, Xbox Live is down right now. And down below that said, for anyone questioning if this happened or not. Post 1907 put up a United States of America map, a heat map of what is going on here, where everything was down, all the Xbox Live connections were down, and this was on August 15th, which was Wednesday. Q said, nothing to see here. Drops equate to reaction, action. Q. Post 1908. Ask yourself simple questions. If Eric Snowden was trying to travel to UIO from Hong Kong, and I think that's Ecuador from Hong Kong, why would he route through Russia? How many direct flights per day from Hong Kong to Ecuador? If what if Russia was the original target? Ask yourself, would you not want to be at your preferred destination prior to going public? Logical thinking. Well, the final intended destination for Edward Snowden was obviously Russia. And this Annan put up a response to all of this. And let me read this to you. So I guess it looks like some iteration of Q has been coordinating with Ruskies for some time now. For years, for all of his faults, it does appear that Putin hates pedo-Satanists. So now it appears that Putin has been a hidden ally and probably fed the fake dossier to steal. That is probably why Hussein, Hillary Rodham Clinton, felt so confident in getting it sent out. Trump was probably cracking up looking at the first draft of the dossier, just knowing these stupid people would just lap it up. And now the cabal is pissed because Trump-Putin played them. They thought they'd be taking Trump-Putin down with Russia narrative. But like everything else, they were wrong and stupid. And then it said edit. Needless to say, obviously Trump was 100% kept out of any direct contact with Russia, as they knew DNC would attempt the Russia collusion angle. The cabal knows they were played and assumed Trump had to be directly coordinated on this, but Q kept him 100% safe and legal. It's got to burn so bad to be beaten by those playing by the rules when you have cheated every step of the way. Post 1909. And Annan repeated what was said before. Anyone having problems with their Xbox also put up, we have it all. The right people have the information. Then down below also included text, emails, drafts, everything that Q said before, this individual put back up, and Q said, nothing to see here, Q. So we move on to post 1910. And there's a picture of a key, looks like a crest, with a torch and a lightning bolt. And Q says, what happens if FISA fails or signers cannot be trusted? Who signed the CP FISA? How do you keep something secure and safeguarded when those at the top of ABC departments are corrupt and being removed? Gave 2 links, Army, INSOCOM, and insocom.army military, Patriots one and all. Just to be clear, that means Carter Page FISA, CP FISA, who signed it. So basically what Q is saying here is that if you have all these departments corrupt and they're being removed, how do you get anything done? You need something of your own. And I believe this is why Q is pointing us to these 2 links saying we have our own intelligence that we are using, and it looks like it's military intelligence. 1911. And Annan put up, never have I been so proud to be an army soldier, hoo-ha. And Annan put up, so, aha, Q, you now have half the board thinking ES is Eric Schmidt, and the other half thinking ES is Edward Snowden. Please confirm which. Q wrote back, hoo-ha, soldier, thank you for your service, God bless Q. And then Q continued on, it should be clear in the context ES equals Snowden. It should be clear based on previous drop, Gamecom's why Eric Snowden was included. It should be clear that ES was used in both Google and at Snowden drops to establish a link. Q. Let's move on to post 1912. Q put up a Twitter link of Comey, something Comey said. Q says line 4, email, Gmail, 12.916, untethered to department standards, concerned dedicated resource in place are not adequate to shelter against the PDB in which several agencies contribute. Will you stand tall or cover? Resist OP will not provide enough public support for cover. Smile for the camera. Patriots are in control. And you can see, and I'll read what Comey said in the link that Q put up there. Once again, this president is sending a message that he will punish people who disagree with him and reward those who praise him. In a democracy, security clearances should not be used as pawns in a petty political game to distract voters from even bigger problems. This president befriends and praises despots and dictators like Putin and Kim Jong-un. Those friends provide stark contrast to the patriotic Americans and public servants he disrespects, threatens, and calls enemies. A war hero like John McCain, members of our country free press, and devoted public servants like John Brennan, American voters must not shrug off or be distracted from the terrible behaviors of this president, who lies to the American people every day, encourages racism, is a misogynist, and always puts his own interests above those of the United States of America. Politicians enabling this president should be held accountable in future elections. We are each responsible for what we say as well as for our silence. And when you look at this, you can see how he was plotting after the election to subvert POTUS, trying to make sure he was blinded by ineffective and misleading presidential daily briefings. This qualifies as treason. Let's move on to post 1913. Q put up from Anonymous 3 yellow blocks. One of them has the crest with the key and the torch and the lightning, and repeats the same thing about, what happens if FISA fails or signers cannot be trusted. The other one was Comey's speech. And then down below, it says, what a coincidence. JC, James Comey, did your email trigger a fake news blast sample? And started giving all the different samples about New York Times. And it says President Daily Brief. And then it went on to NPR. Who exactly is the president's daily brief and why is it important? And it went on and on and on, and it said Q. Looks like Q is telling us the media had access to the private Gmail server Comey used, thus making the media traitorous co-conspirators in a plot to subvert POTUS. Post 1914, Q put up sample and put up all these different links. And these links are about 4chan, about Q, QAnon, why we have the CIA, partly to thank for the craziest conspiracy yet, and it goes on and on about Q. And Q says, another wave of attacks, same day as the targeted coordinated attack versus POTUS, nothing to see here, Q. Post 1915 puts up a link that has to do with a priest, and a child, and the priest is saying prayers over the child, and Q says, man of God, see something, say something, people must unite to clean out these old institutions, Q. And the video is very disturbing because, as you can see, the priest is trying to quiet the baby and slaps it, and the parents, they see what's happening here and they grab their child. So just for a split second, it looks like the face of evil kind of came out, and it only took a moment for the adults there to react because, they were just holding back because it is a priest, and then all of a sudden they realized what was going on here, and they said, no, you're not going to do this to my child. Let's move on to post 1916, August 16th. There's a picture, and we saw this picture once before, of this man walking across somewhere in Hong Kong, and Q says, what are shovels for, Q? And then we have a closer view of this individual, and we finally found out who this is. This is Andrew Cowders. Andrew Cowders, third managing director at Cogent Strategies. And it went on to say, 25 years of Washington public policy, management, communications, and media experience that included political appointments in the Clinton administration. And this individual also attends the Podesta parties where they are wearing red shoes. So this is all connected here. Let's move on to post 1917, and Adam put up on August 16th a picture of Hong Kong with the individual walking across. Let's not forget about the Western Pacific Kindergarten. And then down below shows pictures of this individual with the Podesta group, showing everyone wear red shoes, Bill Maher wearing red shoes, and they're all part of the same thing. Q went on to say, nothing to see here. So it's all red shoes all over the place, and we've gone through this before. Now, before Q says nothing to see here, there's a bunch of links that Q provided and shows us this individual and who he works for. And the next form confirms his activities and adds a little bit more details. So when we look at this, we can see that he has an extensive history working with Senator Mendez. And you know this guy. He dodged in underage prostitution charges during his corruption trial. And this looks like it took place in the Dominican Republic. We also see that Soros ran U.S. foreign policy on post-coup Ukraine, as we know, and this individual was part of this. So just to review this, you have a lobbyist, Andrew Cowders. He worked for a guy who was so corrupt, his corruption saved him from being charged with underage prostitution. He also worked with Soros in order to destabilize a nation that's one of the world's biggest human trafficking hotbeds. We have pictures of him outside of Chinese kindergarten, and we now have him exchanging emails directly with Tony Podesta. And they're talking about cooking, and they're talking about different ingredients they're going to bring. So who knows what this really means, but you can think by the red shoes and everything that we discussed what it really means. Post 1918. Q puts up the pictures of the red shoes, all the links, nothing to see here, and Q says, remember, conspiracy friends, LARPs have access to a full stock of original surveillance photos. Nothing to see here. Fake news, constant attacks, nothing to see here. Enjoy the show. Q. Post 1919. Anonymous put up breaking news via Brett Baer, Fox. 4 planes have made emergency landings in Chile, Peru, and Argentina. No details yet. So 4 planes make emergency landings in Chile, Peru, and Argentina due to bomb threats. And Q responded, within a week of the last boom set. What a coincidence. Remember Southwest? Remember Texas? 4. Boom, 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 boom. Q. Now we know the deep state, they're not just going to be sitting back and just saying, hey, we give up. They're going to try all different types of events, all different type of false flags. And we know these are going to grow in size as time goes on. And Q knew it was going to cause some kind of response. And remember the hunters becoming the hunted? So these individuals are being hunted, and they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to blame all of this on Q, on everything like this. So they're trying to change the entire narrative. Post 1920. Anonymous put up Andrew Cowder and said, was a notable. Annans are on fire. Gave a link to wikileaks.org, Podesta emails, and Q wrote back and put up a link saying, why did the Podesta group close? And gave many different links here and actually put up, do you see it? Hong Kong, March 2012, approval. Podesta Group, registration number 5926, Hong Kong Trade Development Council. Guess Andrew was their man on the street, the one tasked with an unviable job of procurement. Pretty disgusting. Post 1921. Q. Mistake in photo collage posted. Reference to McCann was not intended. No connection. Q. Post 1922. Anonymous put up BBC's hit piece on Q, 3 minutes 55 seconds. Q wrote badge of honor, military grade. And they're continually putting up all these hit pieces against Q and whatnot. Post 1923, Anonymous, Q put up badge of honor, military grade Q, and then put a picture of Lisa Page. And put up UK has problems Q, Lisa telling all. And it looks like she is now working with the White House, telling everything that has been going on. Post 1924, Q put up timelines change, watch the budget Q, and then we hear the news that the parade is going to be canceled because it's way out of budget. And the Pentagon says Trump's military parade postponed until 2019 amid reports costs jumped 666%. Now, if you really look at this and you see what's happening here, you should question it. First of all, it's from an unknown source. The news is reporting it. They don't want this parade to happen, and they want it stopped. So the Post says timelines change. We know the timeline has been moved up. Watch the budget. And Trump and Q might be mocking the deep state right now. They might be doing this because you have to think to yourself, and think about Trump and his businesses. Think about what he does here. He always comes in under budget and ahead of schedule. Timelines change. Watch the budget. And it's just strange that all of a sudden, from an unknown source, they come out and say, listen, it's going to cost way too much money. Does that make any sense? No, it really doesn't. So Q says timelines change. That can mean one of three things. Parade was moved back. Parade was moved up. Parade is this info for timing. So when we look at this, just like we saw the same thing with North Korea with the nuclear button, we're going to war. Trump never projects what he's going to do. It's always done in a roundabout way, so nobody knows going to do. And from history and from the past, it looks like he always comes in under budget, ahead of schedule. So does it make any sense that all of a sudden, of course, from an unknown source, where they're saying that this is going to cost way too much and it's 666%, the budget just ballooned out of nowhere? And it looks like all of this is being done to throw off the deep state.